What a wonderful day to start the day of today. We are celebrating, we are in celebratory mood today. This is World Soil Day, one of the most important days for smallholder farmers. It is my pleasure to be able to moderate this session, courtesy of A Farmers Media, as well as all the smallholder farmers that are facing different challenges with their soils today. We have great panelists that will be able to be interacting with us. We have a very interesting discussion that we would like to be able to have an interactive session. Our apologies for starting off a bit late, but today we want to talk about soil and what this Soil Day means. The most important thing about soil is that all life begins with soil. What is challenging though is which is the best way to be able to make sure that we are actually using the right soil for the right crops. We have been having different discussions of late, the last few weeks, about GMO, genetically modified seeds, and a lot of talk about whether these seeds are the right seeds for our soils. Are they coming to harm our soils? Are we going to have more inputs in terms of farm inputs, in terms of fertilizers and stuff like that in our soils? Is it important? Are we going to do that? So again, welcome again. This is your host Noah Nasiali Kadima, right here from the A Farmers Media Studios, and we are glad that you have actually joined. One of the things that we would like to see is that we would like to play a short video about World Soil Day, and from the production of one of our own, who is called Christine Mutindi. Please allow us to view this video, and then we will start off.
Human beings, just like plants and animals, need sufficient food to survive. But food must be safe and nutritious, not only to provide energy and basic nutrients, but also to prevent disease and intake of harmful toxins. Today marks an important day in agriculture as we celebrate World Soil Day, and our focus is geared on the importance of soil mapping, which is a method used to obtain the most accurate information about the condition of the soil, the weather, and of the crops. Soil mapping allows a farmer to know the composition of soil much better, and also to know the features and specificity of the agricultural land they are cultivating much better. It further assists in determining overuse of fertilizer and some farming chemicals that change soil composition and disrupts the balance of microorganisms in the soil, which stimulates the growth of harmful bacteria at the expense of beneficial bacteria in the soil. Soil mapping is therefore an indispensable tool in the present agricultural activities because it gives the needed information to reduce the margins of mistakes in our agricultural businesses. As we celebrate this day, it is important to note that soil is the basis of all life on earth. We have to recognize the central role of healthy soils as an asset that is key to nutrition, economic development, climate change, and resilient livelihoods, and value all these factors accordingly in order to correct our human behavior for better land use and land management. And according to Franklin Roosevelt, the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. Happy World Soils Day. Christine Mutindi for AFAMAS Media.
As we have seen, the world is celebrating World Soil Day today, and this is why we have brought this special edition to be able to talk to you and get to understand what is happening out there. And I will introduce the panelists right now. We have some of the panelists that are already here, and we'll start off by the ones that are here. They'll give us a brief introduction of who they are and what they are doing. We'll start with Dominic, and then we go to Dr. Robert Mwakio, then Victoria Thenya, and then we have Henry Kinyua. So we'll start off with Dominic Wanji here. Kindly introduce yourself briefly.
Gas is a natural resource that is basically comes from anything biodegradable. No one invented biogas. Biogas is actually created during the development of the earth. But when you make biogas, when you break down any organic material, you end up with a very, very rich organic fertilizer. This is why biogas and soil are so interconnected and so related. So basically, what we're demonstrating is that there is no such thing as organic waste. There's a common saying that goes, waste is only waste if you waste it. So without further ado, I can explain further as we go, but as a brief introduction, Karibu-san, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominic. Dr. Mwakio?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Robert Mwakio, and just a couple of hours ago, we were discussing about soil health, everything about soil.
Doctor, we cannot see you.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to see how I can get myself. Okay, there you go. Yeah, can you see me now?
Yes, in the middle of the soil. Yes.
I'm actually in the middle of my soil. You can see something behind there. Yeah, my name is Robert Mwakio. I'm actually a researcher, and I've been dealing a lot about soil and soil-free farming. We've been dealing with aquaponic and hydroponic as an alternative to soil, and I've done my research, lots and lots of things, especially in alternative farming, and I'm very sure that we're gonna learn so much today on everything about soil. So I hope you'll have an enjoyable session today. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for those introductions. I don't know if we have Henry Kinyua and Victoria Thenya. I am being informed that they are not there. So what we will do is that we will proceed with the discussion. And one of the things that I would like us to just have is that, remember, if you have any questions, those who are joining us as well on Zoom, as well as on social media or social media platforms, that is AFAMAS Media. If you have any questions regarding this topic, the whole of this week we will be discussing what soil is, what it is. And the most interesting bit about this time round is that it is actually touching directly on you as a smallholder farmer, because it is talking about where the food begins. That is from germination, from seed selection, from the fertilizer, both organic and inorganic. I was being bashed the other week on all the social media platforms. So whether you're doing organic farming or inorganic farming, if you're using fertilizers or manure, it is very important to know that in the soil is where food begins. And I like the link that Dominic has put. And for that, I want to start off with Dominic first and ask Dominic, what is the status of our soils here in Kenya?
He's muted.
Dominic, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So yeah, so I was saying that unfortunately the condition of our soils in Kenya is not very good. We have been pumping agrochemicals into the soil since the colonial days, since the introduction of what you could call, or what is termed as conventional farming. One must realize that soil is not just an inert brown medium that is where plants grow. Soil is alive. My picture has frozen. Is my video rolling?
We can hear you. We can still hear you.
Okay, but can you see me? My picture just frozen on my screen.
We can see you, but you're frozen. But we can hear you.
Oh,
Or
okay.
you can just
So
start. You can just click on the video and then just start it again.
okay, so what I was saying, for the longest period, we have been pumping chemicals into our soils since the colonial days. Since before the colonials came to Africa, our grandfathers, our forefathers, their parents before them, they were farming, no problem. They didn't have a food insecurity problem. I agree the population was a lot less, but they used to do what is now being termed regenerative organic agriculture. They were doing it just by default, just because of the traditional ways that they were farming. We are turning this whole regen and organic farming into a whole science, and making it seem complicated and expensive and what have you, when actually it isn't. It's very, very simple to rebuild your soils. Soil is alive. That's the most important thing that everyone must realize. It's not a brown stuff, dirt outside that that plants need to hold the, in order to find the nutrients in. It's not. Per cubic inch of soil, there are millions, if not billions, of microorganisms that are all working, breaking organic material down, transporting it to the roots, moving parts around. I mean, it's a whole environment, ecosystem that's working there. And of course, the most important component is moisture. So we need to maintain one of the most important parts is maintaining your moisture content in your soil, which basically means do not open the topsoil. You must always have a crop cover or a mulch, and not plastic bags. Plastic bags are not good for mulching. That's greenhouse farming, where you're trying to maximize productivity, and you're not really bothered about the quality of the food that comes out of it. If you want good quality food, you have to do what Mother Nature does. We can't invent how to grow plants in the 50 years of our agricultural research and development. It took the Earth, from what I was taught in school, 400 million years to get here. We can't replicate that. We can't pretend that we know exactly how it all works. The best we can do is copycat it. One of the areas where I think is very, very important to understand is that when we talk about waste, as I said, we are in biogas. When we look at waste, if you look at all of the agricultural produce that moves into town and goes to the marketplace, because we are weather farmers, we depend on rain. When it rains, we have bumper harvests of everything: skooma, cabbages, whole host of the different vegetables come out during the rainy season. The bulk of them move into the towns, but quite a large percentage remains on the farm because town gets saturated. So a lot of this food just ends up being discarded on the farm. The brokers won't move it because it doesn't make economic sense for them. When it gets to town, a huge percentage again gets thrown into the skips, into the in the marketplaces. It goes bad, it goes overripe, because there just is too much supply, and it ends up going into the dump sites. Now the dump sites is where it rots, which is aerobic fermentation, when food rots and gives off those foul smells, and it then leaches into groundwater and leaches down into the rivers. All landfills are on steep slopes, which there's a river at the bottom. And then we contaminate our waterways. So yes, it is very, very important to celebrate World Soil Day, but it's also very important to realize that water and soil are absolutely work together. There's what we're calling the blue economy, the green economy. We're forgetting the earth economy, and that is the soil. And the three work together. You cannot have one of those circular economies without combining all three together. One other point that I'd like to point out, which is very, very important, is that we have this habit. Humans invented flush toilets or toilets, pit latrines, anywhere where human waste basically goes down into a hole, goes 20 feet underground, or ends up in a septic tank system that ends up in a constructed wetland that then goes into a river, and that river flows into a lake, and that flows into the sea. It all seems very nice and hygienic and all, but if you think about it, there are 8.5 billion people on this planet. Everyone is pooping maybe 200, 300 grams of poop per day. If you do the math, you're talking about 2.5 billion tons or billion kilos of fertilizer that we are literally throwing away every single day. I'm not saying use this human poop fertilizer for food production. I'm very, very much, not so much against it, but it's an icky topic, and people don't do it, so we're not trying to impose people do it. But we do have a crisis of tree growing. This fertilizer should be channeled towards replanting of trees, replanting of forests, replanting the hedgerows within the urban centers. Our parks can very, very easily be irrigated with water that has been treated from black toilet water. It can be repurposed. Nature would put poop on the surface. It would break down into the soil. Something would grow. Something would eat it. Move those nutrients. They'd go and poop it somewhere else, and then you'd have your circular economy of nutrients, and the poop is being moved around. The nutrients are being moved around. We've upset that cycle by all of our poop ending up in the ocean and in groundwater and contaminating. And then we wonder, why are we getting sick? And then we wonder, why are we destroying the reefs? And why are we, it's because we're not thinking about what we're doing. We just are following what was handed down to us during the 30s and the 40s. We need in Africa, we need to redesign all of our waste management systems. We do not need pit latrines. We do not need constructed wetlands. We do not need dump sites, or what is now being called landfills. We don't have any landfills, actually. We need to rethink about all of our waste and how can we turn it into resources and benefit from it. Use it as use it to our advantage rather than throwing it away.
Thanks very much, Dominic. One thing that you've said, and I really loved how you put it, is Mother Nature wants what is hers. When did this start beating us? And we've talked about, and there are very many solutions, and we are really glad that we have you on this discussion. And as mentioned earlier, we would like to see how this is done practically, and we will be planning for that. I know we had promised that we'll be able to come and feature that, but we will be able to come and visit you. One of the questions that one of the things that you've mentioned again is regenerative agriculture. How we can be able to take back our soils to where it was. My question comes there to you is, what is regenerative agriculture, and how can we play around with it for the benefit of the smallholder farmers? What can they do on their own from the beginning?
Regenerative agriculture is basically rebuilding your soil. You're regenerating your organic material. You're basically putting organic material back into your soil. You're allowing the microorganisms to work on it. And then you're producing food crops out of it. And then you're putting more organic material back into the soil. So you're never depleting your soil. But if you keep on taking plants out of your soil, taking crops out of your soil, you're depleting your soil. And it's not being able to regenerate the nutrients that are needed for the next crop. So by putting organic material back in your soil, you are regenerating the quality of the soil. You're rebuilding the microorganisms. You're providing food for the microorganisms to multiply. There's a number of different terminologies or ways of looking at regenerative, but basically they all boil down to the same thing. You're allowing you're creating a circular economy around a cubic meter of soil. It could be a cubic, could be an acre, could be 1,000 acres, but what you're taking out, you're putting back in again, and you're rebuilding your soil. So on every farm, you do have what the small scale person can do is look at their waste. How can they turn that waste back into compost and then put that compost back on their soil? When they go to the marketplace and they take their food crops there, what can they bring back from the market that is being thrown away, that's considered waste, and just compost it on their farm and then put that back in their soil as well, instead of putting the chemicals on the farm. When you put chemicals on the farm, chemicals kill the microorganisms. I like to say that when people become chemical dependent, their soil literally becomes a drug addict. The soil cannot produce life without adding those chemicals to it because they've killed the life in the soil. One big thing I'd like to comment here is that when people decide to go organic and they start putting organic material back in their soil and compost back in the soil, don't expect to have a bumper harvest in one season. It's not going to happen. Your soil is very, very depleted in the beginning. It might take 2 or 3, maybe 5 seasons before you'll start seeing the real benefits of rebuilding your soil. So don't get disheartened, but do it slowly but surely. You're breeding, you're multiplying your microorganisms, you're building your soil. It's not going to happen overnight. You can't just one day decide, okay, I'm using compost now instead of chemicals. And when your yield is low, you say, well, hell with this. Let me go back to the chemicals. I got more from the chemicals. That is actually completely the wrong attitude. You've got to be persistent, and you've got to keep a focus on it. Keep your soil covered, and keep on putting nutrients back in it, and keep it moist. One thing that's very interesting, I'd like to comment in agricultural techniques, which really does help in keeping the moisture in your soil, is if you go to the Tsavo Plains and the Masai Maras and all of those kind of areas, and you look at what grows in the wild there, it's basically very, very harsh shrubs. It's very, very woody, sticky grasses, acacia trees, these very, very hardy savanna type plants. If you go into a forest and look what's growing in the base of a forest, it's the very, very soft herbs and the soft vegetable plants and what have you. So that's our food. Our food is what grows in the bottom of a forest. But you can't grow in a forest because there's too many trees in the way. So what we do is, unfortunately, our conventional way of farming is, well, chop down all the trees, plow the land, so you've already started destroying the soil, and then grow all your cabbages or your skumas or what have you. So you're trying to grow, you're creating a savanna environment, and you're trying to grow the soft, lush fruit, the vegetables that need to grow in a forest environment. It's not going to happen. Your productivity is going to be low. Your moisture is going to evaporate. You're going to end up with, and you're going to end up thinking, okay, I've got to use chemicals on my crop. But actually, all you need to do is put up a fake, let me call it a fake tree cover. There's a material called shade net. If you cover your farm with shade net, or even start with a small area, you might think, oh, that's very expensive. It's not very expensive. Start with a small area. Just see the productivity that you'll get out of plants that are covered by shade net. 50% UV filter shade net is the best for most vegetables. See the productivity. It keeps the soil moist. It keeps the temperatures down. Your productivity is absolutely fantastic. And then multiply, add on more of your farm. Keep on adding on more and more shade net. So shade net is the new buzz in vegetable growing. We're moving very, very far away from the greenhouse. The greenhouse makes you dependent on chemicals. Unless you're doing flowers that you're not going to eat, I would say don't do greenhouses. They are terrible. Terrible for the soil, terrible for the food. You might as well just eat the chemicals that you're putting in the greenhouse. But the shade net really, really works, and I would say in contemporary climate smart agriculture irrigation, you need to use shade net as your fake forest, if you like to call it that.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Dominic, for that. And you've actually touched on something that I was going to go next in terms of crop cover. We see a lot of farmers now putting the plastic mulch on their farms, and some have complained in terms of how it is. But before coming to that and talking to you on that, let me go to Dr. Mwakio. And Dr. Mwakio, what I wanted to ask is, you are a strong believer of aquaponics, hydroponics, and the rest. Where does that leave farmers who are doing soil?
Thank you so much. Thank
Dr.
you very
Mwakio,
much
if you can hear
for
me.
that interesting information that I've received. Thank you, Domi, for that
Dr.
insightful
Mwakio, I don't
knowledge
know,
that
yes.
you've imparted on us. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I believe so much that soil is a very important element in agriculture. In fact, we all came from the soil, and unfortunately, we'll go back to the soil, as they say. So it's very important that we treat the soil, give the soil the importance it deserves. But unfortunately, we have over the years exploited the soil we've left the soil barren. And with that, we're trying to come up with mitigation as to what other alternative can we use in case the soil does not give what we intend it to provide. That is why we believe in a lot of soil. We believe in the power of soil-free agriculture, where we are trying to get other forms of media to replace soil. Now, we have to understand that soil actually is a medium in agriculture. Whatever soil does is anchoring the plants and providing or acts as a bank for nutrients where the soils are, where the plants are able to absorb the nutrients. Now, can we be able to replace this? Can we be able to act as gods and come up with an alternative to soil? Unfortunately, we cannot recreate soil. Yeah. And I was just talking to Christine this morning and was telling her about how the millions of years it has taken for soil, for formation of soil. Soil is not formed in one day. Like we have a volcanic eruption, and I mean the following week we believe that we can do farming out of that volcanic eruption because it's volcanic. So now it takes thousands of years for you to form soil. But however, with lots of technology and with lots of research, we believe that we can recreate the same specific function soil does with other media. For example, we have media that can be used in as same as soil in terms of the function of what soil does. That is why in aquaponics we are using media such as or grow beds such as coco peat. We can use pumice. What basically they do is that they are able to provide or to anchor the plants and are also able to filter the waste that come from, for example, aquaponic solution. We get water from a fish pond or our holding container that contains fish, and then we pass it through a biofilter. Now that biofilter is where we have the plants growing. So as we filter the water, the waste from this fish pond is filtered and it's left on that biofilter. And as it filters, it leaves the waste and the roots are able to absorb. Now, what happens in this situation is as the roots are able to absorb, they will absorb the specific nutrients that are located in that in the waste that are dissolved in the water. And as they are filtered back, the water goes back into the fish pond, which is clean, and with all the waste that are there actually filtered and left on the grow bed. Now, we are not saying that the pumice or the coco peat has within it the nutrients that are needed. No, what we are doing is we are artificially filtering the water so that we are artificially filtering the system so that the waste that are dissolved or that are located within the fish pond are filtered within the grow bed, and the plants are able to retain, or the plants are able to absorb the nutrients. Now, what other functions do soil have? Our soil provides a protection to soil from elements. Uh, for example, flash flood. If we have floods, we've seen what the effects of floods on water. They actually are able to wipe out or be able to destroy the plants. So pumice and cocopeat also bears the functions of protection of the soil, of the plants, of the plant root, making sure that the plants are held firmly on the ground. Also prevents it from attacks. For example, there are some specific pests that are known to stay to harbor within the soil. So what we do when we use cocopeat, or when we use pumice, we are able to prevent some of the pests that live within the soil through these
Yes.
gaps.
So thanks, Dr. Yeah, and one of the things that you've mentioned again is a mix, and the healthy bit of the soil is actually comes naturally from the soil. So my question to you, Daktari, is, do you think there's something else? I know Dominic has mentioned it. Do you think there's something else that we can be able to do, especially now with the discussions going around about GMO? I know this was not part of the question I was meant to ask you, but with the uptake, the soil food begins in the soil, definitely, yes. Is there something else smallholder farmers who have limited spaces can be able to do, so that as we talk about food starting from the soil, can be able to add on their soils, especially soils that are not as healthy as they need to be? Is there something else that needs to be done? Especially things like adding moisture. Right, I know Dominic talked about adding moisture in the soil. Is there something else that, from your perspective, that needs to be done?
Yeah, and that is why most of the time we encourage people to do soil testing, especially if you are getting into extensive agricultural practice. It's important to ensure that specific, your soil health in terms of the kind of nutrients that are within your soil, and also know a few things like the content, things like the pH, the moisture content, and how good is it? How healthy is your soil to be able to for your crops to grow? So there are a few things that you can be able to do as a farmer, like doing soil tests to determine the specific nutrients that are available and nutrients that are not available. For example, you can want to do some kind of farming that requires a higher percentage of nitrogen. For example, plants like lettuce require about 150 ppm of nitrogen. Now, if your plants do not have that, you as a farmer, you'll have to take an initiative of topping up the nitrogen level. And that's why it's very important for farmers to, determine the kind of the kind of nutrients that are available in your soil. So it's good to also determine how healthy your soil is. There are very many ways of determining how healthy your soil is through also your harvest.
You seem to have lost the sound. So I'll go to Dominic. And Dominic, my question to you is: we have you've mentioned about tree planting, but we also see that there's the shamba system where the forests tend to be more healthier. We also whose responsibility, Dominic? Because from your perspective, whose responsibility is it for making sure that this issue about regenerative agriculture is actually being it's actually being taught? Because we are not seeing it being taught even in the universities, in the colleges. Whose responsibility is it to make sure that this is actually happening?
First, I'd like to comment on something that the doctor said earlier. Dr. Noah said earlier. There have been studies that have been done on regenerative agriculture, on the basically on soil, on regenerative agriculture versus chemical fertilizer. Well, now, when you do soil tests, you find out how much DAP, how much CAN, you find out what are the nutrients in your soil. The research that's been done is very, very interesting, is that even with partially depleted soil, where you'd say that this is not enough DAP, CAN in the soil to grow your plants, provided the microorganisms are in very high populations, you can still get a higher yield with lower, what you can say, the tests of the nutrients in the soil. So the nutrient test is okay. It tells you if your soil, gives you the condition of your soil. It doesn't give you the health of your soil. The health of your soil is based on the amount of microorganisms in the soil. And there's nobody yet doing microorganism tests in this country. So it's just a matter of you personally building it up. Now, whose responsibilities is it to get this knowledge out to the farmers? I think we need to look at the ministries of agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture, they are still, unfortunately, following textbook. So they are still looking at what did we learn in college, what did we learn, in university and what have you. And so they're still teaching conventional farming. They haven't gone back to school to realize, oh, there's been a shift in agriculture globally, and everyone's now moved from conventional to organic, and now they've moved from organic to permaculture, and then permaculture now into regen. So we still, our field officers, our lecturers, our ministers in the agriculture department haven't caught up with what's happening. So who is supposed to do it? They are, but they don't have the knowledge. So it's farmers like Noah, like ourselves, like a lot of the people who are actually now believers in the permaculture technology. It's up to us, I think, to set up demo farms and train the farmers and train. We have a lot of government offices coming and visiting our demo farms, which are scattered wherever we have our large scale biogas recycle centers. And we have quite a high volume of dignitaries and interested people who want to come and learn and see, wow, how does this work? We haven't used chemicals on our farm since we started, more than 15 years ago. We've never used a single chemical or pesticide or herbicide on any of our farms. And we've got extremely high productivity. We actually produce compost that we then sell as an additive. So we sell live compost. It's moist and it's got the live microorganisms in it. So we help to build your soil wherever you are. But in answer to your question, whose responsibility is it? That's a tough one. I'm not sure whose responsibility it is, but who can help to get the knowledge across is, I would say, more the private sector than the government sector until they get, learned enough in these new agricultural techniques. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And I am sure that we will be able to come and visit. I am hoping that before the year ends, I will be able to personally visit and get to learn much more about that. I am being told that we are joined by our county. I am proud to host her. She's called Victoria Adenya, who has actually joined us. I would like to request her just to introduce herself briefly. Yes, Victoria, karibu sana, and please introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Noah. It's still good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Yeah.
Morning.
Yes, as he has said, my name is Victoria Adenya. I'm in the Department of Agriculture, currently the County Director of Agriculture. I apologize for joining late, but I believe we are going to move together. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria, and karibu sana. And now that you've joined, what we'll do is that we'll just ask you to change and face the light, because we can't see your face clearly. You can just turn and face the window so that we can see you. Oh, there, that's fine. Or you can turn.
That one.
Just turn so that you can face the window. Okay? We can see you clearly. Yes, that is good enough. Thank you. So we have seen that Kajiado County, our beloved county, has been affected so much with the droughts. But on the flip side, also we have a lot of boreholes being drilled, and it increases salinity. But with all those challenges, we have been walking and talking to farmers in as far as Mwea, Kirinyaga, and they are saying that now they are running away from Kirinyaga and coming to Kajiado. Hence the reason why Kajiado County is #1 in production of tomatoes. Kindly tell us, as a county, as a county government, what can farmers do to be able to continue improving their soils?
Okay, thank you so much. But okay, that is very true. Farmers are coming to Kajiado from different areas, and largely because Kajiado still has a vast land for agricultural production. And actually, when these lands are, you realize that they are not going to use a lot of fertilizers so that they can be able to get a high productivity. But as you have said, that's very true. And when we are using our borehole water, it's very saline, and that is also affecting the quality of the soils. And again, also with, we know with irrigation farming, there's a lot of nutrient mining, and actually the soil quality is becoming very low in nutrients very fast. And as I have heard one of our colleagues say that organic farming is the way to go, or vermiculture. But I would like to say, like most of the crops we are growing in Kajiado, like the tomatoes, most of our farmers are not really embraced organic farming. We are using just the inorganic fertilizers. And for me, I would recommend that they go organic way. And because of our soils are still not very much depleted, we use the organic manures. We have a lot of organic manure in Kajiado, so that we are able to keep the microorganisms still in the soil, and also increase maybe the soil microbials. And we also want to encourage the farmers to also do some practices to improve the soil carbonation. That is, maybe we do a lot of agroforestry so that we can fix more of the soil carbon. So maybe for now, that is what I can say. We are going to encourage our farmers to do.
Thank you very much,
Yes, Mo?
Madam Victoria, for that. And it is really commendable what you as a county, you and your colleagues in the county, what you're doing. We are excited to continue working and seeing how this is successful. However, there is a question that I would like to ask, now that you've mentioned, I think you'll also give us some insights into it, but I want to send it back to Dominic and ask Dominic a question that has been sent to me, that do I need to test my soil if I am growing food organically? Dominic, to you now.
The only thing that you really need to be aware of in the soil is acidity. If your soil is becoming very acidic, because you are using, as Victoria mentioned, borehole water that is saline and sometimes affects the pH of the water of your soil, then your productivity will be low. Provided you are adding a sufficient nutrient back into your soil, you can test it if you want to, just to get an idea of how many nutrients are in your soil. But like I said, it's the microorganisms that are in the soil that actually make the difference. Your nutrients will certainly be there. If you're putting organic material, they can't go anywhere. They have to be in the soil. They will break down and they will be present. But like I said, the moisture is extremely important. One thing I would like to add to the methods, contemporary methods of agriculture, Water is expensive because you have to drill it, or you have to pump it, or you have to move it. But using drip irrigation is extremely, extremely effective. We turn the drips upside down so that the drip is actually facing down. So the water goes straight into the soil. And then turn on your irrigation systems only in the evening. Don't turn it on when the sun is shining, and you're going to have a very high level of evaporation. You use 1/10 of the amount of water that you are using if you're using sprinklers or flood irrigation or any other kind of irrigation. Drip is extremely, extremely effective in keeping the soil moist. I hope that answers your question. One thing.
Especially we as smallholder farmers, because this is the discussion where we are starting off. For those who have joined the first session, please, if you have any questions, kindly have them in the chat section, or if you're following this discussion on our social media platforms, kindly send your questions, observations, and any other comments. We will be taking a short break, and during the break we will play a video about what this day is all about, and the next session will be moderated by my very able colleague Jacqueline Kemunto after this. Thank you very much. So let's have the video up.
Human beings, just like plants and animals, need sufficient food to survive. But food must be safe and nutritious, not only to provide energy and basic nutrients, but also to prevent disease and intake of harmful toxins. Today marks an important day in agriculture as we celebrate World Soil Day, and our focus is geared on the importance of soil mapping, which is a method used to obtain the most accurate information about the condition of the soil, the weather, and of the crops. Soil mapping allows a farmer to know the composition of soil much better, and also to know the features and specificity of the agricultural land they are cultivating much better. It further assists in determining overuse of fertilizer and some farming chemicals that change soil composition and disrupts the balance of microorganisms in the soil, which stimulates the growth of harmful bacteria at the expense of beneficial bacteria in the soil. Soil mapping is therefore an indispensable tool in the present agricultural activities because it gives the needed information to reduce the margins of mistakes in our agricultural businesses. As we celebrate this day, it is important to note that soil is the basis of all life on earth. We have to recognize the central role of healthy soils as an asset that is key to nutrition, economic development, climate change, and resilient livelihoods, and value all these factors accordingly in order to correct our human behavior for better land use and land management. And according to Franklin Roosevelt, the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. Happy World Soils Day. Christine Mutindi for AFAMAS Media.
And welcome back to today's World Soil Day celebrations as you're marking it in a very interesting way. Thank you so much, our guests, for making time to be with us. And I really appreciate there's so many questions that are coming through from some of our guests who have joined in today's discussion. But I have a question for Victoria. I don't know if she's still around or she has left. When I was talking to her yesterday evening, I was like, I'm totally against soil testing. Like, why do we really need to have to take a soil test? Is it really that important? Are our soils that depleted? That's for Victoria.
And for me, I would say soil testing is okay, so that you know the status of your soil. And in most cases, we say it is important so that if you are to add any nutrients, then you don't waste a lot of resources buying the nutrients which are already in your soil. You only go for what your soil is lacking. So it is also important to understand your soil. So for me, I would say it is necessary.
From Dominic on how to control the unfriendly organism pests in the soil and air, and can one grow fruit trees using human waste? If so, how do you get rid of the toxicity?
In answer to the first part of the question, pests, plants are just like animals. A weak animal will attract disease because its immune system is broken down. Same way, plants will attract pests if they're weak. What makes a plant weak is lack of nutrients in the soil. So, if your soil is weak, your plants will be weak. You will get infestations of aphids and spider mites and all sorts of sap-sucking pests. If your soil is healthy, then you won't.
A bit, but yes, we have other guests who have joined us in this second part of the discussion. We have Collins Pondi, who is the CEO of Pomili East Africa and deals with manufacturing food waste. Thank you so much, Collins, for making time to join us. Probably you can introduce yourself a bit for our audience to know who you are. Yeah, it seems like Collins has muted his gadget. We're also joined by Nekesa Wafula, who is an expert on soil, and you'll get to tell us really exactly why do we need to have our soils tested, and the importance of celebrating this day. Nekesa, if you're there.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Nekesa. I'm a business development specialist and an advocate of soil health. So I think for the need to actually undertake a soil test, and this is something that that is usually practiced. You cannot just go blindly and decide to buy medicines from the pharmacist. And this is the thing that we tell farmers: if you are feeling sick, you need to go to the doctor and be able to undertake a test, and that way you can know what is actually ailing you and you can get prescriptions for that. And if you look at the way we treat our soils, it's totally different. We just usually go and buy, purchase soil amendment products, soil inputs, and we pump this into our soils without knowing how much is actually required. So if we can be able to test our soils just like our bodies, then we can know what actually is missing. And depending on the crop, know how much nutrition the crop requires to be able to achieve the target yield. And that way then be able to prescribe what is required and be able to get the difference between what is mined from the soil and what is required to be able to know how much to put into the soil to avoid nutrient mining. Thank you, Jackie.
Joined by Henry Kinyua. Thank you so much, sir, for making time to be with us in today's webinar. How are you probably celebrating and marking this day, World Soil Day, and what is its importance and significance to you, according to you?
Thank you, Jackie. And hello, everyone. Again, my apologies for delay. I had these days I have meetings back to back. So even now, my name is Henry Kinyua. I'm an agriculturist. I've been in this space for quite a while. And I've been, for quite a while. So I've been in agriculture from the production, the science. Right now, more about policy. Most importantly, looking at how farmers' data can be collected, can be analyzed, and can be securely shared to ensure that farmers will take advantage of this new resource we call data. Just to throw in what you are about the issue of we are discussing today, the issue of the soil. I can't add more than what Nekesa had said. She is really like the day-to-day specialist in this. But look at it this way: it's basically like you even look at it from money. If you want to spend and you have money in the bank, you have to get your bank statement to understand how much money is there, so that you can spend, you can plan how to do the spending. It is actually that's another view you can look at it your soil. You want to know how what you need. You want to plant maize, or you want to plant beans, and with a good advice, beans you require this amount of nutrients. Then you check is the way that you want to go buy food, and you want to say how much money do I have in my account, so that if you don't have enough, then you cannot buy what you want. So similar to the soils, you just check with the soil and say, hey, what do we have here? What do we have? Is the nutrients available? Is sufficient to give me the yield I want? Then if it's not there, then how much do I add, and for what? So it gives you that kind of that very deliberate and target approach to addressing this. So it's both scientific, it's both economical, and it's both just common sense to really just continue continue testing our soil before you use fertilizer. I know many people say, but our fathers were not testing from those days until the other day. First of all, is you realize that our yields, even from the 60s, 70s, were high for many reasons. That time, our soils had not been as used as they have been today, so the depletion has gone up. Then secondly, we also need to look at it in terms of there were very good cultural practices that were able to look at, including crop rotation, including leaving because land was not as scarce as it is today. It could be left fallow for quite a while. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and the need for soil testing cannot be gated. Thank you.
Yeah, coming back to you still, Henry, you've talked about the issue of soil policies, and I'll pose this question to the three of you. That will be Henry and Victoria, and probably Dominic, on what is your take? Kenya recently lifted the ban on GMOs, and there are so many effects that come with the growing of such crops and the use of hazardous chemicals on our farms. what policies are available or what policies need to be put in place for farmers to be able to reduce the adverse effects on our soils. Probably I'll start with Victoria, coming from the county government of Kajiado. Victoria, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie, for that. And I would like to say that the policies which I have, we have the policies on the fertilizers. And that one, it is still under the national government. The county has not reviewed it, tailor-make it to the county, but we are still following that. And the way we have, it's about fertilizer application, the rates, the nutrients available, and as our colleagues have also said, that it also outlines where to use which fertilizers, whether acidic or where to, depending on the soil pH. So that policy is there, and we have been following it to advise the farmers on how to use the chemical fertilizers. And this one is also going to be linked with the food safety policy, which is still being amended. And because we know sometimes the use of the fertilizers, also those nutrients can also be present, some of them. The mineralization of the cells, the nutrients can be present in the foods we eat. So we are also sensitizing our farmers on the issues to do with food safety vis-a-vis the soil inputs we are using. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Probably, Henry, what is your take on the policies that we have, the current policies that we have, and what other suggestions would you probably suggest for governments and even farmers to use when dealing with the issues to do with soil?
First, I think I would say there's something you had requested or you had mentioned about the issue, the current, lifting of the growing and distribution of GMO in Kenya. Personally, I'm a supporter of GMO, but simply because I've read them, I've understood, I've seen the risk, and I've read about the risk and also the potential benefits of them. And therefore, to me, the key part is what the government must do is need to engage the farmers. Nothing should be forced. You cannot say this is what it must. It should need to be there as an option. But farmers and all Kenyans need to. I think this matter has been discussed a lot by scientists, really like biotech guys who are more knowledgeable than I am. But I can say using the Kenya Biosafety Act, and so there's the legal, their policy and legal tools that are used to ensure that whatever comes to the country is addressed. And one thing also that is coming in is like, if the government pushes this, also we also have the court route where people can go to have the issues sorted out. So for me, whether GMO is good or whatever, that I would like it to be more discussed more. But I think a lot in terms of to see how do we ensure that not just the proclamation itself, but we go to the ground to make sure the farmers understand. Secondly, of course, there is that fear that hybrids or even GMO, they take a lot of nutrients, which is true, because the more the yield, the higher the yield, the higher nutrients requirement. And again, that goes back to our soil analysis. So you do the soil analysis, you see the crop you want to grow, you see the nutritional requirement, you see what is available in the soil, and see how it goes about it. So for me, going forward, is I can say we have relevant legal framework to address anything that might come, but we need to do a lot of public awareness, public participation, more information before, and as we continue as a country, not force anything down the throats of any farmer or anybody, but also ourselves, also educate ourselves more about all these things, so that at least for us, God have blessed us to have been to school, not to be the source of misinformation. We can just be, if it's something we are not clear, we can say, that one I don't know, let's check somewhere else. So that to me is my appeal to all my fellow agricultural professionals or scientists. Let's not jump into all the subjects and as if we are expert. Where we are expert, let's agree. But also, we are not. Let's at least not create fear. Let's say this has been addressed. Can the government provide more information? Can this body provide more information? And that way, we are going to contribute to the discourse than what is happening today. There's a lot of fears that are founded. Some are founded, others unfounded. But that is the nature of humanity. We have to be careful in what we do. But more so, the more we discuss, the more we debate, the truth comes out. But most importantly is that it has to be a choice. The farmer needs to make a choice whether you want to grow hybrid, grow whatever. So also looking at it, we have the current laws. Does it allow the diversity of the seeds, the seed available, diversity of the crop, of the soil nutrition products available? Does it provide the diversity in the pest control products available? And I can say yes. So even as if that comes, nothing so far that means that everybody can be forced to use a certain product that they don't need to use on their farm. Thank you.
Probably, Dominic, you're one of the farmers who is doing a lot when it comes to checking on greenhouse gas emissions and from your biogas production. Where would you say countries will be at in the coming 10, 15 years when it comes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions? And probably share with us some of the projects that you're doing when in terms of even your biogas production.
Okay, thanks for that. Let me just go back onto a bit of what Noah mentioned about the GMOs. I think that if you look at the population of Kenya and the conventional way that farming is done, everybody will, for instance, maize is one of the staple diets in this country. Everyone grows maize. The majority of the farmers will keep some of their maize seed aside for growing season. They will consume a certain amount of their maize, and then they'll sell the surplus onto the market, into the silos, which then ends up in the supermarkets. So the actual farmers who are growing the maize, to me, the GMO is where the risk lies, because the GMO, the maize, for instance, has got what they call a terminator gene, which means that you cannot grow if you were to harvest a GMO maize, the seeds will not grow. Now, maize is wind pollinated, which means that I can say that I don't want GMO, but I'm going to grow maize because I'm rain dependent. And my neighbor says, well, I'm going to grow GMO because I want to see the difference. His maize pollen is going to blow across into my farm, and it's going to affect my maize. It's going to pollinate mine, which means that next season, my plants will not germinate. So in terms of food security for this country, you introduce GMOs, everybody is going to be running to the agrovets for seeds, everybody. So only one person gets rich here, and that is whoever it is that's growing the seed. And everyone becomes a slave to those people, because there will be no food if only one person controls the seed. That to me is the biggest risk with GMOs. That's a different topic. I agree with Noah. It's a different topic. It's not related to soil. Soil is very, very different. I do beg to differ with his perception that everyone must test their soil because you're going to add what's missing. If you're adding what you're missing, then you're not really caring about your soil. You might as well use sand and just keep on buying fertilizer. Let's stop using the word soil. Soil is, and this World Soil Day is about live soil. It's about the microorganisms in the soil. It's about how the soil, how Mother Nature designed soil to work. If you keep on having to add chemicals and add the missing this and add the missing that, then you're not dealing with soil. You're dealing with conventional farming, which then it doesn't matter what your soil is. That's another conversation altogether as well. You can grow in sand. You can grow hydroponically. It's not soil anymore. It's a growing medium, and it doesn't matter what it is. It can be powdered glass. It can be sand. It can be anything you want. because all you're going to do is add nutrients to it, and hopefully you think you're going to get some good plants. So those are my points when it comes to that. You're not organic. You're not going conventional farming. You're not going regenerative if you're following those practices of adding chemicals to your soil, or adding what's missing. You're not building your soil if you're adding what's missing. You're worried about the economics. On the topic of greenhouse gases and emissions from farms, the main area of greenhouse emissions is, you could say it's the decomposing of especially cow dung in pits and in lagoons, where the cow dung actually, you've created a synthetic biogas digester, and you're releasing methane to the environment. Yes, a lot of chemicals also do release different carbons and what have you into the environment, just as they evaporate, the nitrates and what have you evaporate into the environment. A lot of it leaches off during the rains into the rivers, so you're contaminating the rivers. What I think where we should be in 15 or 20 years is if all farmers can learn, because biogas technology is becoming far, far more simple with prefabricated systems, and prefabricated systems that are not animal dung reliant. We have biodigesters that run on anything biodegradable, which means that all of your crop waste that would otherwise lie in the compound and decompose can go into your biogas and regenerate clean burning gas that can then be used for cooking. A lot of people are burning firewood and charcoal. Charcoal is the leading destroyer of the forest, by the way. And charcoal actually comes into town. It's not the people in the rural areas that are using charcoal. It's the towns that are using the charcoal. And so we need to move biogas into town by setting up large-scale biogas digesters in the low-income areas, because that's where the charcoal uses, in the slums, in the Kiberas, in the Kayoles, in the Madari valleys. Wherever you have a highly populated area, you have a slum that comes up. So if we can educate, one thing we believe is that once you educate children in school how to use biogas, this is where there could be a policy. This is it where greenhouse gases could greatly be reduced. Introduce biogas into schools. Whether you use the biogas from the human waste. Hello?
Okay, we'll have break, sort out the sound issue. Probably we'll play that video that we have done on the World Soil Day celebrations as we sort this issue of the sound. We apologize for that slight sound hitch. Some people are trying to get into our system. But coming back to this discussion, Claire Nekesa, you're one of the soil experts in the room. Who would you say are the main culprits who are in destroying our soils? Because in my opinion, most of the farmers are the ones who are destroying our soil. So who would you say are the main culprits in soil depletion, and what needs to be done in order for us to have better soils in the coming years?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me? Dominic?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Dominic, can you hear me? Yes, so we were concluding on that part of who are the main culprits in depleting soils, and what do farmers need to be told so that they can reduce on even the chemicals that they use and the greenhouse gases. Kindly unmute yourself, Dominic. We can't hear you. Unmute.
Now can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Okay, as we try to get Dominic, let me go to Nekesa Afula. You're an expert on soil health. What is your take on the problems to do soil depletion? Who would you say are the main culprits when it comes to the depletion of soils, and what can farmers do to reduce soil depletion? Nekesa, if you can hear me.
Jackie, can you hear me now?
Dominic, I can hear both you and Jackie. I don't know why both of you can't hear each other.
Okay, that's very strange.
Why don't you both of you type at the chat box? Maybe let each other know what's happening.
The host needs to unmute everybody. That's what's happening.
Yeah, so the host has unmuted me, but she still can't hear me. So Jackie, can you hear me now?
Dominic?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, we can continue. Some people are trying to get into our system, but we managed to stop them. So let's now continue with our conversation. I was asking on what needs to be done. You're talking about the hyacinth and how you're creating biogas and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. What do farmers need to be told in order for them to reduce depleting the soils in terms of practicing good agricultural habits? And who would you say, first of all, are the main culprits in this whole issue to do with soil degradation?
I don't think it's who is to blame. I would say the system of the old days, our old education system, is the culprit that encouraged people to use all these chemical fertilizers. At that time, it appeared to be a good thing, but as we've learned now, it's not such a good thing. And so it is the leading destroyer of our soils. It's just what people learned in school. Most of the textbooks that teaches you on conventional agriculture. Changing people, farming is a people, especially rural farmers, getting them to change their ways is extremely difficult because they depend on their farming and they cannot and will not take risks without seeing somebody doing it first. So getting them to switch their farming techniques is very, very tricky. So I think that one way where we can change this in one single generation without having huge seminars and huge amount of change, it might take a while, maybe 10, 15 years. But a way to do it would be to introduce biogas into all schools, especially primary schools. Once a child sees that waste can turn into energy and fertilizer, you're guaranteed that when that child moves into a family of their own, they will not think about firewood and charcoal, and they will not think about chemicals and fertilizers from the agrovet. They will have learned from school. They'd have grown up with it in school, and they will automatically be a paradigm shift from conventional farming to now regen agriculture, permaculture. Call it what you will, but it's growing the way it was grown conventionally many years ago. More intensively because we can use irrigation systems now that are very effective. So you've got to be climate smart now. We all know that buzzword. And then also growing under the shade net. So you're maximizing, and then also growing vertically. So you're increasing your land space by growing on top of itself. Literally, we promote the use of what they call the story gardens or the cone gardens, where we can get 3 to 4 times more yield out of the same space using these cones with drip irrigations in them, and they're all covered by shade net. One man show, you just turn the valve on and turn it off. You run your fertilizer through the drip system as well. You've top dressed with compost. So these systems can be introduced in schools, and the children should be the focus because they will make the change in the next generation. Changing old folk now is complicated and difficult. They don't want to take the risk, but getting kids to practice this in school, and then they take the knowledge home and they go and build themselves a little biogas digester. They build themselves a little cone garden. They then take that education back to their parents, and their parents see, wow, this works, and then you can easily have a copycat effect from there. We have to remember the education system is designed again. The new system is different, but we still have a huge amount of what you could call rural to urban migration of people who have gone to school, gone to college, gone to university, looking for jobs. Our education system is designed to become a job seeker. And so everybody is heading to town to look for a job. And when in my day, you were punished by giving a djembe to go and dig in the shamba if you didn't do your homework or you got something incorrect. So farming was a punishment. It meant that you were dunderhead. It meant that you didn't have a lot of brains. So we need to change that perception that farmers are the people who don't have any brains. Farming is now I wouldn't call it a rocket science, but it is a science, and it's a logical science. And we need to get as many youths onto this train as possible. Food is, if there's one thing that humans can't do without, what anything can't do, it's food. We can do without changing our clothes. We can do without bathing. We can do without a roof over our head. We cannot do without food. So that is where the job opportunities are. There is an old saying that used to go around that the the next billionaires in Africa are going to be farmers. It is, but it's not going to be the farmers who are growing tomatoes the conventional way and selling them in crates, and half of the tomatoes are left on the roadside, and only the good ones end up in the market, and then the good ones go overripe and they end up in the landfill anyway. The billionaire is going to be that farmer that turns those tomatoes into tomato sauce, the one who turns those pili pili into pili pili sauce, who turns the maize into flour. That's where the value add, that's where the real economics is in agriculture. And the more farmers that can realize that once you have the energy, which you get from biogas and from solar, and you've got the knowledge, which is very simple, how to process and value adding to products, remember, is purely extending the shelf life. Once you extend the shelf life of a product, you have value added to it, which means that now you're not in a rush to get it to market before it sells. You're not being forced by the broker to sell it at a cheap price because it's going to shelf life, and you can sit and you can wait, and you can do it or doing with a SACCO, with your neighbors, and putting some chandering, some money together to set up a processing. But that is the way that we need to steer our youths into.
Yeah.
Stop running to town to look for jobs. There is plenty of income generating activities that can be practiced back on the farm.
Very interesting there, Dominic. Quite a long answer there. But let me bring in Nekesa on what is your...
Jackie, I can't hear you.
Don't have sprinkler irrigation.
Jackie,
is there another alternative? Nekesa, you're one of the soil experts that we have in the house. What are your thoughts? You also asked to respond to the issue on policies. Probably you can jump on that.
Sorry, Jackie, I lost you when you asked the question. I think you went on mute. Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, I was asking about the issue of, there's a question that has come here on our Facebook. One is asking, how can we improve our soil health for better crop yield? And also, you asked to talk about the issue of the policies on our soils. Probably you can jump on that.
Thank you, Jackie. Maybe I can try and also give some feedback on what Dominic has mentioned, and also touch a little bit on what Henry mentioned and what the county of Kajiado representative also mentioned. Sorry, I didn't get her name. When you look at soil health generally, because if you're talking in line with the theme for the World Soil Health today, we're talking about building soil health and also ensuring that we're actually feeding the soil and ensuring that we have the microbes back. It's basically bringing back our soils. And we cannot do this without knowing the status of our soils. And that's why I'm sure one of the main things that is happening is about ensuring we are testing our soils and knowing the organic matter that actually our soil contains, because this is the key to ensuring that we know what we start building our soils. Because, when you're talking about sustainable production, how do you know that your soil is okay or good enough to be able to produce 10, 50, 100 years from now? You must know the status. And maybe just talking about the crop nuts
recording stopped.
The crop nuts experience, where you find that we walk with the farmer's journey. The company works with the farmer in terms of the journey. And that way they're able to, track the soil from pre-planting, knowing what is the status of your soil in terms of all the nutrients and including the organic matter, and therefore provide advice on how to even build the organic matter. Because these days, it's not just about how much the crop will be able to pull out or how much you need to add into the soil, but it's also about how much organic matter is there in the soil. When you're talking about completing the carbon cycle, ensuring that you're participating to ensure, as a farmer, to ensure that you're actually part of that completion of the organic carbon cycle, then it means that you have to do activities on your farm that ensure that that carbon cycle is completed, including putting back into the soil what you're taking out. And maybe to just contribute on using the organic fertilizers. I wouldn't say that inorganic fertilizers are bad, because most of these products, like for example, if you take products like phosphorus, if you're talking about DAP, most of these products are from naturally occurring rocks, which then are value added to then produce the DAP. So if you look at it, it's a combination of both.
Recording
So
in progress.
if we are able to integrate, personally, I'm a champion of integrated soil fertility management. So if we are able to integrate and be able to build that sustainability of the soil, looking at all these things, we are looking at what is valuable for us in the soil to ensure that we have earthworms, to ensure that we have the nitrogen fixing bacteria, what really adds value. Because if you look at in combination, I've been involved in several projects, especially on nitrogen fixing bacteria, where we actually worked on inorganic fertilizers that would be suitable to be used together with, the nitrogen fixing bacteria, so that you can get the best nodulation. So it's not about just telling farmers that you can't use inorganic fertilizers because of ABCD. Let's have facts on the table. Let's have trials. Let's integrate to give the value. Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about economics for any farmer who's producing on their soil and sustainability, then we must think about how do we integrate all these into the system. And then on the contribution of what Henry mentioned about the GMOs, I think one of the facts that we have not been told, and I think that is something that maybe probably policy needs to put in place, is if we move to GMO, does it really change the scenario? I'm looking at how much of the fertilizers we're actually using currently. We are at, I think Kenya is maybe on average 50 kilos per hectare of a bag, which you can't really say that has an impact on even the soil as much, especially if you want to get the highest yield. On average 50 kilos, and we're talking about other countries even using as much as 400, then you can see there's a huge discrepancy. So if you're talking about GMOs, how much are you telling this farmer of in terms of fertilizer or in terms of nutrition? Let's talk nutrition, because nutrition can come from either inorganic or organic products. How are you balancing this out to the farmer? Is the farmer going to use less of these products? Just imagine now we are already struggling to get the farmer to even increase what they're using currently in terms of nutrition. How about if we bring on board GMOs? What are they going to use? If you take a GMO product of, say, maize, the BT maize that has been approved, versus the hybrids that are there, what is the comparison and the economics, especially when you talk about producing to the maximum? That's what I would want more information taken out to the farmers so that they can make an informed decision, apart from what Dominic mentioned about the cross-pollination and all this that would affect, the market, and those who have a choice not to take GMOs. We need to put policies in place for this before, having the farmers to decide. And when I touch a bit on the policy, I think Kenya has some of the best policies when it comes to both soil management and even in terms of value addition, to be able to maximize and make agricultural activities or even production very economical. My issue comes in the execution and implementation, because the same policies we have are the same policies which are being adopted in Zambia, adopted in Angola, adopted in all these other countries. Even I think Malaysia might have borrowed part of our plans. But where are we as a country when it comes to execution? Right now we have the agricultural strategy and transformation growth, agricultural sector transformation and growth strategy, which clearly states what needs to be done in terms of conservation of our soils, in terms of value addition, in terms of water conservation, how to utilize the dams and all these things. We have the soil management policy, which even states, which even mentions about the procurement of fertilizers at county level. Are counties going to the level that they can know and understand their soil profiles and what products to use at their county level to ensure sustainable production, or are they just buying products or commodities that are available in the market? So if we have to make informed policies, we have to start at the highest level, at the government level, whether at the government or the county level, so that we make informed decisions that would then impact at the farmer level. If a policy is passed at the highest level and followed through up to the lowest level, I'm sure we are going to get our soils back to where we are, because the policies are there. I think it's not just a matter of improving. Now, back to improving our soils, I think we have no shortcuts. If you look at the commercial farmers in Kenya, And I think if you look at most of the commercial farmers, even I think there's one here in Athi River, and probably Noah can organize for a field visit to this farmer. This is a farmer who does production of wheat in a dry area. How is he able to achieve this? And ensure that there's water conservation, ensure there's enough soil moisture, there's enough nutrient. How are they able to achieve this, and yet the smallholder farmer is not able to achieve this? What can we learn from the commercial farmer? What is the commercial farmer doing right that the smallholder farmer is not doing right? There's no shortcut. We must test our soils, whether it is a policy that will be passed by government to necessitate that we do soil testing before any product goes onto our farm, whether it is soil conditioning from liming to organic matter, to all these products that we are adding onto our soil. We need to do soil testing so that we can be able to ensure that we are getting the right products onto our soils to ensure sustainable production. So there's no shortcut. Let's start with soil testing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nekesa, for that. There's so many insights you've mentioned about the execution and implementation of policies, the importance of testing our soils. I'm really interested to visit that farmer in Athi River who is doing commercial wheat farming. But that's a conversation we'll have for another day. Let me bring in Collins Pondi all the way from Mombasa. He's one of the CEO of Pomili East Africa and deals with manufacturing of food waste. Probably you can tell us how you go about it and what is your take on our current soils and how are the soils actually in Mombasa? Probably unmute. Okay, as you're trying to get a hold. Okay, can you hear me, Collins?
Are you talking to me? Hello?
Can you hear me?
From far. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. So probably introduce yourself, what you do, and then take us through how you go about manufacturing food waste.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I didn't even get your question.
Yeah, I was asking you to introduce yourself and also tell us what you do at Pomili East Africa and what is your take on our current soils and the soils in Mombasa. Are they depleted?
What's the last part, the last statement?
No, she's not bringing them. She's not forcing. She's actually saying, and which I've now seen.
Okay, we are trying to get a hold of Collins. We are having a challenge. I understand there are some agronomists also who have joined us, who have made time to join us in today's edition. There's one, Samuel Mwangi and Alan. Probably I'll start with Samuel Mwangi. You are one of the agronomists who is dealing far and wide with various farmers from different counties. Probably tell us what is your take on our current soils? What are farmers not doing right that needs to be done for us to have better soils in the near future?
So thank you very much, Jackie. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
So thank you very much, everyone, for the wonderful discussion. And from your question, Jackie, I think when you talk about soil, we know that as farmers, soil is everything. In as much as there's no good soil, then it would mean that there will be no substantial farming that will be happening. So soil basically is something that we need to take care of very much for food production. So maybe to base my answer on the importance of soil conservation, now that we mark a very important day today on soil day. Maybe from what you've asked, Jackie, I think we as farmers, we are the people, we are the first people who are making this soil not to be unsuitable. I think Dominic has been talking about the use of so much use of chemicals in our soils. This is something that is making our soils very unproductive. And if by anything it should be, we should shift to other ways that are conserving our soil. Maybe we can talk about the organic farming. There are so many things that are there, or measures that can be able to replenish our soil back to their normal status. Look at things like nowadays people are exhausting. Everybody is exhausting the soil. We don't give time soil time for just like the older days when people could have lands for cultivation. You could find out that some people would leave other portions unattended or no farming done, so that at least the soil gain it has time to replenish and get back to its normal. So these are things that currently people are not doing. We are embracing. There's so much embrace on the use of chemicals, which is making our soil not safe for even the food that we produce. So I think we are the most, we are the first people that are contributing to the soils getting to levels that are not good for farming. Yes.
Yes, interesting. There's
Jackie, can you hear me?
To in order to regenerate our soils. Alan? Yeah, so we are trying, Alan, but I don't know if Mokio is still in. Mokio, you're one of the farmers and experts who is dealing with soilless farming. Basing on the conversation that we've had today, we are really
relating to soil health and media in such a way that plants are able to absorb nutrients directly into the soil, into the root system. So when we're basing our argument on this new way of doing agriculture using a soil-free medium, we're looking at the advantages that we are able to get as farmers. What are the challenges that are we experiencing as farmers using soil? You know, issues relating to pests and diseases. Some of the diseases and pests actually are harbored within the soil. If we are able to get rid of such issues that relate directly to the soil, that especially when we have some pests like the fall armyworm and some of the diseases which are harbored by the soil, we are able to directly cut the link that relates to soil and pests or soil and diseases. So we also trying to cut down on the land use size or the acreage that we use in planting by us incorporating hydroponics and aquaponics. Actually, this kind of system actually tries to minimize the usage of land. And also by using aquaponic and hydroponics, we are able to overlook, or we are able to cut down costs that relates to use of this kind of fertilizers, the expense involved in the use of fertilizers. Like we said, a whole acre uses about 50 kgs of fertilizer. So we can be able to cut down the cost tremendously by use of aquaponics and hydroponics. And talking about organic farming, aquaponics and hydroponics are 100% organic farming, meaning that we're able to get, what we're able to get is actually organic products, 100% organic products. So we're able to tone down on the talk of genetically modified organisms. So from aquaponics and hydroponics, we're able to harness a lot from the environment, harness a lot from natural elements that occur naturally. Waste, we get fish waste naturally, we get all this naturally, and we like the pumice that we use as as a soil media. We get them naturally. So what basically, when we relate soil day and aquaponics and hydroponics, we are able to mitigate issues relating to soil health and depletion, soil depletion. And if farmers can be able to start or embracing these new technologies in farming, we can be able to the importance of soil to agriculture. We've seen over the past year issues that are affecting farmers more so in production. We are seeing reduced production. In fact, this year the production from the maize growing areas, especially in the Kitale area, we're seeing the reduction of production, and we're asking ourselves, what is causing all this? Is it issues relating to soil health? Is it issues relating to how we are managing planting of maize? So it's very important that we understand soil health, and it's very important that we take into consideration issues that affect soil health and soil productivity. So that is my parting shot for the day. Thank you.
I think for me, they can jump in before I close. I think it's first is to thank you for this opportunity to discuss, but I think you need to appreciate that the challenge the world is facing to feed 9 billion people or no, we need all hands on the deck. We need all means. Whether we are, for us, like myself, I'm a very serious campaign of conventional farming with a very clear responsibility to the environment, to the soil. Let's push that. The angle that pushing for regenerative agriculture, let's push that. The organic, the idea is we have a growing population that we have to feed, and we have to come up with all manner of solutions and strategies to deal with that. Again, many thanks for this team for inviting us, and looking forward to contributing next time. Thank you very much.
And thank you for having part of this.
Great, thank you, man.
Closing remarks.
Okay, let me also say something. First, let me appreciate that this has been a great conversation talk. There was a lot of learning, and I would want to say that we all have to achieve the goals of food production and also food security. And for my parting shot, I think all the partners, we should join hands, and then we all focus on sustainable agricultural practices so that we have the food and also we conserve our soil. So thank you so much. And I wish to thank the organizers for inviting the county government to participate in this.
Thank you very much, Madam Victoria, for having joined. And Jackie, is someone else joining?
Already left the meeting. Yes. So this was the 9th edition of the World Soil Day. Now, how are you marking this day today?
Today, I think it's going to be a whole week of activities right here. We just come. I think when I stepped out a bit, we had another discussion with an organization called Planet, as well as UK Tech Hub. And what we're discussing is what is the role of imaging in terms of soil health and understanding what the soil is all about. But most importantly, how can we, just the way the United Nations has made it very clear that it is where the food starts. Meaning it is back to the smallholder farmers. You know, we've been talking about desalinization. Last year was about desalinization. And all this it's called complex jargon. You know, English is not very, the complex jargon. what I love about the theme this, before I answer your question, what I love about the theme for this year is germination. Because that's where it starts. You know, land preparation, right soil. I know that's one of the questions you wanted me to ask, which is the best soil. But we want to ask ourselves, with the soil that you have, what can you do and get the maximum yield? You know, if it's talking about fertilizers, if it's talking about manures. And Madam Victoria from the county director, agriculture, has actually said yes. Even I normally call him Waziri Kinyua, said yes, for sure it is actually conventional. We have to do that. I know you're very happy today. But but despite that, then what's next? You know, once the soil has been sorted out, give me any seed, it will grow. Yes. So in terms of how we're going to market to celebrate and mark this day, I think, as I mentioned, I think it's going to be a whole week of different activities. Kids have also closed school, so we're going to see how we can be able to share some of the activities that are already out there, as well as visiting our farm as well as a team, and also participating in some of the activities that the UN has actually put up in terms of marking this day.
I'm really looking forward for the photo session. I'm trying to get creative on the soils, you know.
And today I was wearing. Yep.
Yeah. So interesting. That has been a special edition of this year's Soil Day, and as Noah has put it, it's going to be a week-long event, and there's a lot of activities that we've planned here at AFARMERS. I'm inviting the team that has joined us in today's webinar to join us and work with us the whole of this week.
Yes.
When we call on them, probably they need to come. Probably we can even visit.
Yes. And also probably we'll see if it will be possible. We can see if we can visit Dominic on short notice. But more importantly, we also have other partners who have made sure that we are alive and kicking, and making sure that we are able to be here to give you this information. I think one of them, which is good to really talk about, is Markup under UNITO. That is Market Access Upgrade Program, who are actually, we are partnering to bring to you information about aflatoxin. Again, starting with the soil, as well as some of our past partners, with special regard to Crop Nutrition Laboratory Services, who have worked with us. I can say personally they've worked with me every step of the journey. And yes, Nekesa has always been there to support and make sure that we are getting the right information, even to you as farmers. We also have Omnia Fertilizers, who have developed really good products. But a very good friend of mine, also, who is called Abdelaziz Kokoli. Yes, special thanks for him. He goes all the way to the farmers, supporting farmers, talking to farmers. So for me, I think that I would like, and also you as farmers. Oh, we as farmers. How many you? You as farmers. We as farmers. For really fighting for your space. I think I sent this in the group, in the work group, about the seed principle. Fighting for your space on the table, I think it is very important, and we are here to continue giving this information.
There's one thing you've forgotten to mention. There's the next interview that is coming up with Danielle Nierenberg, who is the CEO of Food Tank. And soil is where food begins. So we need to find out the status of the kind of food that we eat, and what Food Tank is standing for when it comes to this year's Soil Day. So without much further ado, we have to end this conversation. But coming up shortly after this is the Farm Girls, and we are just talking about soil. I'm being told that we have not said special thanks to the production team. If you see what is happening behind the scenes, so hats off to the production team. Very true. Yes. Olga Divine and Kavin and June and the rest of the team, Fiona, making sure that you have these visuals that you see, and Zipporah. Hats off. Is also coming shortly with the news briefs before we get into the Farm Girls. Thank you so much, guys, for everyone who joined in the webinar. We'll be communicating with you to take you through what the events will be happening throughout the week. And yes, this has been the special edition of World Soil Day. So goodbye.